I pulled into the driveway, tires crunching against the gravel, as the Texas sunset painted the porch in hues of amber and gold. Granddad's porch. The one where we'd sit for hours, him in his creaky rocking chair, me cross-legged on the steps, listening to stories of his youth. Fireflies would dance in the humid air, and the cicadas would hum their endless song. For a moment, I sat in my car, engine off, half expecting him to shuffle out, wave, and call, "There's my Emma girl," like he always did. But he wouldn't. He was gone. 6 months in the ground, and all I had left was this house. Or so I thought. My name's Emma Harper, and this is the story of how my own family tried to erase me from my granddad's legacy, and how I fought back. Before we dive in, picture this. It's May in Austin, the air thick with spring, and I'm 32, a librarian with a quiet life and a heart still raw from loss. Where are you reading this, and what's the vibe? Drop a comment below if this feels too close to home. I stepped out of my car, the evening breeze brushing my skin, and walked toward the mailbox. Something glinted in the fading light. The brass nameplate, the one that had read Harper for decades, was gone. Replaced. A new engraving shone under the sun's last rays. Chloe Bennett. My stomach twisted. Chloe, my cousin, who'd fake a cough to avoid helping Granddad rake leaves. That Chloe. I opened the mailbox, hoping for a letter from the lawyer, something confirming what Granddad had promised. The house was mine. Nothing. Just a pizza coupon and a realtor flyer with Chloe's face grinning like she'd won the lottery. My fingers tightened around the flyer, crumpling it. I grabbed my bag and headed for the front door, fishing for the spare key under the ceramic turtle where Granddad always hid it. Still there. Some things hadn't changed. Inside, the air hit me like a slap. Lavender, lemon polish, and something sterile, like a hospital waiting room. I blinked, adjusting to the dim light of the living room. Boxes lined the walls, neat and labeled. Living room decor, kitchen misc, Granddad's books, donate. My breath caught. I turned, taking it in. The grandfather clock still ticked, but the room felt hollow, stripped of its warmth. My eyes landed on a box marked Emma's childhood room, sort later. The handwriting was careless, like my memories were an afterthought. I walked down the hall, past the coat rack where Granddad used to hang my jacket when I forgot it. My bedroom door was ajar, empty. The closet held 2 boxes, both labeled Emma, dispose or donate. My knees buckled, but I caught myself on the doorframe. No one had called. No one had asked. I sat on the edge of the bare mattress, the familiar creak gone, probably replaced. My palms pressed into my thighs as I fought the ache in my throat. Grief was supposed to come in waves, but this was a wrecking ball. I stood, steadying myself, and headed for the hallway. That's when I heard her voice. "Emma, you're here early." My mother, Vivian, stood there, lipstick perfect, heels clicking on the hardwood like she hadn't just buried her father 6 months ago. "Early for what?" I asked, voice low. She smiled, the kind of smile you give when delivering bad news, with a side of charm. "Chloe's been staying here to help with the transition. We're getting the house ready to list." "List what?" My voice was barely a whisper. "The house, sweetheart. You know how old it is. The upkeep would bury you." She brushed past me, adjusting a picture frame on the wall like this was just another Tuesday. I swallowed hard. Granddad told me this house was mine. Vivian sighed, not even looking at me. "Plans change, Emma. Your granddad wasn't exactly a paperwork guy." I didn't respond. I just walked past her, my shoes too loud against the floor like I was trespassing in someone else's home. Maybe I was. In the hallway, a photo lay face down on the console table. I hesitated, then picked it up. It was me, Granddad, and Rusty, our old golden retriever, taken the summer after I graduated college. Granddad's hand rested on my shoulder. His eyes crinkled with that smile he saved for me. "This house has good bones, just like you," he'd said. I set the frame upright, my fingers lingering on the glass. No words, no tears, just breath. The study was darker than I remembered. The curtains swapped for something beige and trendy. Chloe's taste, no doubt. I moved to Granddad's desk, the faint smell of cedar and ink still clinging to the wood. I opened the drawers, careful not to disturb anything. Nothing unusual, just pens, paper clips, a half-empty pack of his favorite peppermints. Until the last drawer on the right, it was locked. I traced the edges with my fingers, and there, faint but unmistakable, were carved initials. E.H., my initials. No one else's. You promised, I whispered, my palm flat against the wood. You said this would be mine. The light outside had faded to a dull orange. I didn't move, just stood there, hand on the drawer, trying to recall the last thing. Granddad said to me, "You're the keeper of the flame, Emma girl." I hadn't understood it then. I was starting to, now. Chapter 2. The Family That Erases You. The front door creaked, snapping me out of my haze. Voices drifted in, heels clicking, paper bags rustling, someone laughing. I slipped a small envelope I'd found in the desk into my pocket and stepped into the hallway. The living room, silent an hour ago, was now a stage. Chloe, in designer athleisure, perched on the couch arm like it was her throne. My father, Greg, leaned against the fireplace, his usual tired kindness, softening the tension. Vivian floated through the room, playing hostess. "We were wondering where you wandered off to," Vivian said, her smile too wide. "I told them you were probably just reminiscing." I didn't answer. My eyes caught a folder on the coffee table, thick and tidy. Chloe chirped, "Everyone's here! It's like a family reunion." Like this was a barbecue, not my granddad's house being gutted. Greg cleared his throat, pocketing his phone. "We wanted to loop you in, Emma. I know this has moved fast, but it's for the best." "For the best," I repeated, slow and deliberate. "Exactly." Vivian nodded, hands clasped like she was leading a prayer. The house went into escrow. Last Friday. Solid offer above market. Closings in 10 days, give or take. My knees wobbled, but I stayed standing. "You sold it?" "It was too much for you, sweetheart," Greg said, like he was explaining a math problem to a kid. "The maintenance, the taxes, you're a librarian. How would you manage?" Chloe laughed, sharp and bright. "You should be thanking us, Em. No stress, no mortgage, no leaky pipes. You dodged a bullet." The air in the room shifted. They weren't sparing me. They weren't careless. This was calculated. Vivian picked up the folder and handed it to me. Just acknowledgement paperwork. The buyer's coming tomorrow for a final walkthrough. I opened it, my fingers slow. Escrow details, closing date, signatures. My name wasn't there. "I didn't sign anything," I said. "I didn't even know there was a sale." "You didn't need to," Greg said, his voice gentle but firm. "The property was in the family trust. That gives us control. Granddad told me he left the house to me. In my name." Vivian gave me that look, pity mixed with exasperation. "Verbal promises don't hold up in probate, dear. You know that." I swallowed, the folder heavy in my hands. "And none of you thought to tell me before you packed up my childhood. And put Chloe's name on the mailbox?" Silence. Chloe twirled her bracelet. "We didn't think you'd take it so personally. It's just a house." "No," I said, my voice quiet but steady. "It's a promise." No one answered. Greg shifted. Vivian sat. Chloe smirked at her phone. I left the room, the weight of their silence pressing against my back. Outside, the air was warm, heavy with the scent of honeysuckle Granddad had planted along the fence. I stood on the patio, letting the heat sink into my skin, wondering how many decisions had been made about my life while I was still wiping tears at his funeral. Inside, laughter erupted. Someone mentioned dinner plans. It didn't fit. None of it did. Later, after they'd left, Chloe tossing a "see you tomorrow" like we were co-workers, I sat at the kitchen table and checked my phone. I shouldn't have. A post from Chloe, a curated shot of Granddad's porch captioned, "Some people care more about property than peace. Granddad deserved better than drama." The comments were brutal. Let the dead rest. Can't believe Emma's fighting over a house. Gross. There's always one. My thumb hovered over the screen, numb. They were rewriting the story, painting me as greedy, selfish, ungrateful, and it was working. I stood, moving without thinking, back to the study. The screwdriver was in the junk drawer. I pried open the locked drawer, wood splintering, something inside me breaking with it. Inside was an envelope, my name in Granddad's handwriting. I held it, unopened, my voice cracking. What have they done? In a small village, a cat named Whiskers discovered a magic fish in a pond. The fish promised 3 wishes in exchange for its freedom. Whiskers wished for endless fish, a cozy bed, and a bell that rang softly. The fish granted all 3 wishes and swam away, leaving Whiskers content and purring in the sun. Chapter 3. The Truth in the Wall's Back. At my apartment, I shut the door and leaned against it, the envelope still in my hand. My purse slid to the floor, but I didn't move. The silence was deafening. No laughter, no clinking glasses, just me. And Granddad's handwriting. I sat at the kitchen table staring at my name on the envelope, Emma Harper. I opened it, my hands unsteady. Inside were 2 things, a folded copy of his original will and a yellowed note. The note read, "If they sold the house, check the signature and check the date. You weren't in town." I read it 3 times, my heart racing. I grabbed the folder Vivian had given me and pulled out the sale agreement. There it was, my signature, perfectly forged, down to the little flourish on the E. I hadn't signed a thing. My mind spun as I opened my laptop. I searched my inbox, Seattle Librarian Conference. There it was, flight confirmation, May 11th to 16th. My calendar confirmed it. Workshops, panels, a keynote on the 13th. I even had a photo from a colleague, me on a panel, time-stamped May 13th. The sale document was dated the same day. I hadn't been in Texas. I exhaled, slow and bitter. I grabbed a plastic file folder and wrote "Truth" across it in black marker. Into it went the will, the flight confirmation, and a printed copy of the forged sale page. I sat back, staring at the folder. They hadn't just taken the house. They'd erased me, signed my name like I didn't exist. At midnight, I called Sarah, a fellow librarian who'd organized the Seattle panel. She answered, groggy. "Emma, you okay?" "Sorry to call so late," I said. "Can you send a letter confirming I was in Seattle May 11th through 16th? Specifically that I spoke on the 13th? A pause then. "Yeah, of course, you killed that panel. I'll send it tomorrow." "Thanks," I said, my voice tight. "I owe you." After hanging up, I remembered the old family iPad Vivian had, synced years ago when I helped her recover a password. Her texts and photos had backed up across devices. I hadn't thought about it until now. I grabbed the tablet from a hallway shelf. It powered on, barely. I opened the Messages app and scrolled. There it was. A screenshot Greg had sent to someone named James, the buyer's name from the documents. "We've got her. Don't worry. She won't contest. She's passive." My chest tightened. Another text from Vivian to Greg. "She's always been the quiet one. That's why she's perfect. Perfect. Perfect to ignore. Perfect to walk over." I screenshotted both texts, emailed them to myself, and saved them to a USB drive labeled Truth. I held it tightly, my jaw clenched. They counted on my silence, my softness. They forgot I was Granddad's girl. I didn't sleep. I sat in my car, the USB in my pocket, the will on the passenger seat. At dawn, I drove downtown to Lauren Carter's office, a family law attorney recommended by a colleague. Her firm was in a modest building with a brass plaque, Carter and Hayes, Estate, and Family Law. I walked in, documents in hand, and told the receptionist it was urgent. Lauren appeared minutes later, mid-40s, sharp-eyed, her navy suit exuding calm authority. "Emma Harper?" she asked, shaking my hand. "Let's talk." Her office smelled of coffee and old books. I slid the Truth folder across her desk. The will, the forged sale, the flight confirmation, the texts. She read in silence, her expression unreadable. Then she smiled, slow and deliberate. Your granddad was careful. She pointed to a clause in the will. The house may not be sold under any trust, delegation, or power of attorney unless Emma Harper signs in person with 2 witnesses. I blinked. So they can't sell it? Not legally. And forging your signature? That's fraud. Criminal. Something clicked inside me, like a key turning. Lauren leaned forward. We'll file an emergency injunction to halt the sale. I'm sending a letter to the buyer today. Does he know? I asked. If he does, he's in trouble. If he doesn't, he'll want to know he's buying stolen property. I exhaled, the weight lifting slightly. Will I have to go to court? Eventually. But today we buy time, and we shake the table. Chapter 4. The Keeper of the Flame. That evening, I drove back to Granddad's house. The porch light was off, the blinds drawn. I sat in my car, then stepped out, the gravel crunching under my sneakers. I unlocked the door with the spare key, still under the turtle. Inside, the air smelled of dust and citrus cleaner, like childhood and endings. I walked to the hallway where the photo of Granddad, me, and Rusty sat. This time, I noticed the frame's back was thicker. I turned it over, 4 tiny screws. In the kitchen, I found Granddad's small screwdriver. Back at the frame, I unscrewed the back. Taped inside was a tarnished brass key, warm in my palm. I scanned the room. The fireplace caught my eye, its patchwork floor worn, smooth. One board near the hearth had a faint heart etched into the grain. I knelt, the key in hand. The board lifted with a soft creak, revealing a fireproof lockbox. My breath caught as I pulled it out, sitting against the wall as dawn light filtered through the curtains. I slid the key in. The lock clicked. Inside, wrapped in flannel, was a USB drive, a letter in Granddad's handwriting addressed to me, and an envelope labeled Henry. The letter read, "If they try to erase you, go to Henry." I almost laughed, tears stinging my eyes. Henry Larson, Granddad's neighbor, remembered everything. Birthdays, anniversaries, the year the oak tree in the backyard fell. By 9 a.m., I was on Henry's porch 2 blocks away. The house looked smaller, paint peeling, but his spoon wind chime still jingled. He opened the door before I knocked. "Emma Harper," he said, voice cracking. "I wondered when you'd come." Inside, he placed a flash drive, a cassette tape, and an old photo on the kitchen table. Me, Granddad, and Rusty under the backyard oak, me gap-toothed and grinning. On the back, in Granddad's handwriting, "She remembers what matters." "Why'd he give you this?" I asked. Henry rested his hand on the cassette. "He didn't trust them. Said you'd fight for what the house meant, not what it's worth." He played the cassette. Granddad's voice filled the room. "They'll tear it apart, Henry. If I don't lock it down, they will." Henry's voice replied, "You wrote the will." Granddad continued, "It's not about paperwork, it's about intention. Emma gets that. She'll fight for the meaning." My throat tightened. All my silence, my stepping aside, Granddad hadn't seen weakness. He saw strength. "Why didn't he tell me?" I whispered. Henry smiled. "He did. You just needed to hear it now. We talked over tea, about Granddad's laugh, his lopsided pancakes, the summer we nearly burned down the shed building a fort. For the first time in months, my chest felt light, like a lantern flickering back to life. Henry pressed the photo into my hand as I left. "Your fight's not over, but you've got fire." Chapter 5. The table shakes back home. I spread everything. On my kitchen table, the will, the flight documents, the forged sale, the texts, the recording, the lockbox contents. I signed Lauren's affidavit, not for revenge, but because Granddad had entrusted me with something sacred. If I let them bury it, I'd lose more than the house. I'd lose what it stood for. The next morning, Lauren arranged a meeting at Sterling Properties, the buyer's firm. I arrived early, but she was already there, calm and composed. "Let's begin," she said, holding the door. Inside, the air smelled of fake lavender. A junior agent blinked at me. "Appointment?" "She has one now," Lauren said, sliding. a thick envelope from her bag. Cease and desist. Get James Carter and your managing broker. The receptionist scurried off. James appeared, late 40s, slick haircut, confidence faltering when he saw Lauren's envelope. You're representing Emma Harper, he said. The rightful heir to a property your firm tried to buy with fraudulent authorization, Lauren replied. She tapped the affidavit. This confirms Emma wasn't in the state when the signature was allegedly made. And this, she held up the sale agreement, contains a forged signature. James looked at me, his tone patronizing. Your mother said you were emotional. I should have double-checked. I stayed silent, letting his words hang. Sometimes silence amplifies shame. He rubbed his neck. I'm withdrawing my offer. I'll speak to legal about damages to my firm. Lauren nodded. Do that. And tell your title company they nearly facilitated a felony. Outside, word had spread. I caught Chloe's name on an agent's text. Gossip moves fast when liability's in the air. Lauren smiled, small and satisfied. That was the easy part. Chapter 6. The Art of Deception. I returned to Granddad's house that afternoon. Vivian's car was parked crookedly, Chloe's Range Rover open, boxes stacked inside. They were cataloging, Vivian said, wearing white gloves and holding Granddad's pipe case like it was an artifact. Stealing, I corrected. Chloe laughed. Rich, coming from you, caring about dusty junk now. I stepped closer. They're stories. You don't touch another one. Vivian sighed. You're making this divisive, Emma. No, Mom. You did that when you forged my signature. Her jaw tensed, but I was already moving. I stopped at a painting by the door, a Colorado. Landscape Granddad and I hiked when I was 15. The colors were wrong, too bright. I ran my finger along the canvas. Not linen, synthetic. I called Lauren. Bring someone who knows art. An hour later, Lauren arrived with Ms. Ellison, a retired museum curator. She examined the painting. Reproduction, she said. A good one, but not original. Vivian snapped. That's impossible. It's been in the family for years. Lauren raised an eyebrow. And yet. It wasn't just the house. They were laundering Granddad's art, swapping originals for fakes, turning his life into cash. I moved to the attic hatch, pulling down the ladder. Dust swirled as I climbed, the air thick and musty. Behind the chimney, I found a steel safe keypad only. I tried Granddad's birthday, mine, nothing. Then I remembered. Rusty's adoption date, 0417. The latch clicked. Inside were ownership certificates for Granddad's art, appraisals, insurance letters, and a note. If they get desperate, they'll trade history for cash. Don't let them. You're the only one who saw the meaning. I sat in the attic, holding the note, dust clinging to my hands. My phone buzzed. Lauren, your mother's alleging mental instability and falsified documents. She wants a freeze on proceedings. Don't panic. We expected this. I exhaled. Let her try. I had the truth. Chapter 7. The final move that evening, I was sorting legal folders in the dining room when a moving van pulled up. Vivian stepped out of an SUV, flanked by two men in suits, briefcases in hand. They weren't here to talk. I backed away from the window, heart pounding, but I didn't. Run. I grabbed my phone, hit record, and set it on the table, microphone up. Vivian burst in, tossing a folder down. This house was never just about you. I opened my truth folder, laying out the appraisals, certificates, and documents. No, it was about the $2 million you were laundering through Granddad's art. One lawyer froze, the other stopped flipping pages. The door opened again, Lauren and James Carter. Lauren nodded at me and sat. James scanned the room. I wasn't told this was a group session. We thought you should hear all sides, Lauren said. I inserted the USB from the lockbox into a laptop. Granddad's face appeared, tired but sharp. If you're watching this, they did what I feared. I left the truth in the walls for Emma because she listened. The room fell silent. James turned to Vivian. Your mother said Emma was unstable, that she hated this place. I met his eyes. She said that because I wouldn't sell. I wouldn't pretend Granddad meant nothing. Vivian stood smirking and played a video on her iPad, me at a barbecue saying, I wish I could walk away from this house. She paused it. Case closed. Lauren didn't flinch. Play the rest. The clip continued. But I promised him I wouldn't. Not after everything he built. Silence. I handed James the case file. Timelines, appraisals, Granddad's video, emails. Everything you weren't told. He turned to Vivian, voice sharp. I'm done. You've crossed every line. Blue and red lights flashed outside. Officers stepped in, their commands cutting through Vivian's protests. Lauren gathered her bag, looking at Vivian. They're not here for me. Chapter 8. The House Remembers. 3 months later, the house is mine, legally and fully. Vivian and Greg face charges: fraud, forgery, conspiracy. Chloe took a plea and left town. James testified for me, admitting he believed the wrong people. I respected his honesty. The house is quiet now, the kind of quiet that settles after a storm. I walk its rooms, not to mourn, but to plan. One room will be a senior reading circle, another an art space for kids. The backyard shed will become a community workshop. Not a museum, but a living flame like Granddad wanted. Henry visited today, his eyes lighting up at the photo I hung in the hallway. Me, Granddad, and Rusty under the oak. He placed a plaque below it. She remembers what matters. I couldn't speak, just nodded as he squeezed my hand. In Granddad's study, I found a leather notebook. Its final entry dated days before he passed. Redemption is heavier than revenge, and more lasting. You remembered, Emma. You kept the house alive. I closed the book, holding it close. Outside, the oak's branches swayed, golden light filtering through. The house creaked, familiar and warm. They tried to erase me, but the house remembered, and so did I.